Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Free Learn Academy. In the last video, I have explained you the understanding of an ideology with an example that how we will understand it. Now in this video, I will tell you about the definition of ideology, the working definition of ideology and four major functions of an ideology. So there are many definitions of an ideology, but the most appropriate and important definition is that an ideology is a set or a system of ideas that tries to link thoughts with action. That is, ideology attempts to shape how people think and therefore how they act. Ideology tries to combine two things. The first one is the thinking of a human being, and the second one is the action of a human being. So, ideology tell us the action and the thinking ability of a human being combine. For example, whenever someone presented some ideas, some concepts, some thinking, when they bring them in a practical in an action, so it is the ideology which tell us about that. So an ideology is a fairly coherent and comprehensive set of ideas that explains and evaluates social conditions, help people understand their place in a society, and provides a program for social and political action. So this is basically the ideology which tell us about the comprehensive set of a human being ideas, a comprehensive, a coherent set of ideas, and also evaluate all the conditions, especially the social condition that help the people to understand their place in a society, that where you are in a society, and it also tells us about the political action of a human being in a society and also a social action of a human being in a society. So it basically tell us about the action and the thinking of a human being. So there are four major functions of an ideology. The first one is the explanatory function of an ideology. An ideology offers an explanation of why social, political, and economic conditions are as they are, particularly in the times of crisis. The second function of an ideology is evaluative function. Evaluation. So the second function of an ideology is to supply standard for evaluating social conditions. The third function of a political ideology is an orientative orientation function. An ideology supplies its adherent to an orientation and a sense of identity. And the last and the final one is the political program, programmatic function of an ideology. Finally, it tells followers what to do and how to do it. These are the four functions that every ideology must perform. So the first one is explanation. An ideology offers an explanation of why social, political, and economic conditions are as they are, particularly in times of crisis. At such times, people will search sometimes frenetically, for example, explanation of what is happening, why are there wars. There are some basic questions they in the explanation of an ideology. The first one is why are there wars? Why do depression occur? What causes unemployment? Why are some people rich and others poor? Why are relations between different races so often strained, difficult, or hostile? These are the basic questions of an explanation that ideology perform. To these and many other questions, different ideologies supply different answers, but in one way or another, every ideology tries to answer these questions and to make sense of the complicated world in which we live. So, the answer of some ideologues, some ideology to that question, the first one is a Marxist might explain wars as an outgrowth of capitalist competition for farm markets, for instance. The second answer is a fascist is apt to explain them as test of one nation's will against others, and a libertarian will probably explain inflation as the result of government interference in the marketplace, while a black liberationist will trace the roots of many, if not most, social problems to white racism. These explanations are quite different as these examples indicate, but all ideologies offers a way of looking at complex events and conditions that tries to make them more are ideologues, people who try to persuade others to accept their ideology, typically want to reach as many people as possible, and this desire leads to them to offer simple and sometimes simplistic explanation of puzzling events and circumstances. So these are the basic questions and answers that every ideology perform in the first function of an explanation in the critical situation in a society. So every ideology tries to give out an appropriate answer regarding to the question. So the second function of an ideology is the evaluatory function. So the second function of ideology is to supply standards for evaluating social conditions. There is a difference, after all, between explaining why certain things are happening and deciding whether those things are good or bad. So this is the function of an ideology which tells us about the goodness and badness of an evil that is happening inside a society. For example, are all words are evils to be avoided, or some more morally justifiable? Are all words evils to be avoided, are some morally justifiable? Are depressions a normal part of the business cycle or a symptom of a sick economic system? Is full employment a reasonable ideal or new pipe dream? Are vast disparities of wealth between rich and poor desirable or undesirable? Are racial tensions inevitable or avoidable? So these are the basic questions that the ideology evaluate in a society. Again, an ideology supplies its followers with the criteria required for answering these and other questions. For example, if you are a libertarian, for example, you are likely to evaluate a proposed public policy by asking if it increases or decreases the role of the government in the lives of individuals. If it increases government's role, it is undesirable. If you are a feminist, you will probably ask whether this proposed policy will work for or against the interest of the women, and then either approve or disapprove of it on that basis. Or if you are a communist, you are apt to ask how this proposal affect the world for or against the interest of women. Or if you are a communist, you are apt to ask how this proposal affects the working class and whether it raises or lowers the prospects of their victory in the class struggle. This means that those who follow one ideology may evaluate favorably something that the followers of a different ideology greatly dislike. Communists look upon class struggle as a good thing. For instance, while fascists regard it as an evil. Whatever the position may be, however, it is clear that all ideologies provide standards or cues that help people assess, judge, and appraise social policies and conditions so that they can decide whether those policies and conditions are good, bad, or indifferent. So this is the second function of an ideology which evaluates the answers of different questions in a society. Every ideology tries to evaluate their answers to their questions. Third function of an ideology is the orientative function. Orientation. An ideology supplies its adherent with an orientation and a sense of identity of who he or she is, the group, race, nation, sex, and so on to which he or she belongs, and how he or she is related to the rest of the world. So this is the second function which tells us about the identity of a person and their relations, the in relation of an individual of an ideology with the rest of the world. So there is an example just as hikers and travelers use maps, compasses, and landmarks to find their way in unfamiliar territory. So people need something to find their social identity and location like a compass. Ideologies help people orient themselves to gain a sense of where they are, who they are, and how they fit into a complicated world. For example, there are another example. If you are a communist, you most likely think of yourself as a member of the working class who belong to a party dedicated to freeing workers from capitalist exploitation and oppression, and are therefore implicitly opposed to the ruling capitalist class. So this is the orientative function of an ideology in the sense of a communism. For example, or if you are a Nazi, you probably think of yourself as a white person and member of a party dedicated to preserving racial purity and enslaving or even eliminating inferior races. If you are communist, you are apt to think of yourself as first and foremost a woman or a man sympathetic to women's problems who belongs to a movement aiming to end sexual oppression and exploitation. Other ideologies enable their adherents to orient themselves to suit their situation or position in a society in still other ways, but all perform the function of orientation. This is the orientative function of an ideology which gives an identity to the people and their relation with the rest of the world. Every ideology gives an identity to a human being, to an individual, and it also explains the relation of that individual with all other people around them in the surrounding in a society. For example, I am a communist, so it is my an identity. And what is my relation with other people? Socialist, capitalist. So this is basically the function of an ideology to form the orientative function. The final function of an ideology is the programmatic function. It performs a political program. An ideology finally tells its follower what to do and how to do it. It performs a programmatic or prescriptive function by setting out a general program of social and political action. There is an example just as doctors prescribe medicine for their patients and fitness trainers provide a program of exercise for their clients. So political ideologies are same is the case. It prescribed remedies for sick societies and treatment designed to keep the healthy ones in a good health. If an ideology provides a diagnosis of social conditions that leads you believe that conditions are bad and growing worse, it will not be likely to win your support unless it can also supply a prescription or program for action that seems likely to improve matters. This is exactly what ideologies tries to do. For example, if you are a communist, you believe it's important to raise working class consciousness or awareness in order to prepare for the overthrow of capitalism, the seizure of state power, and the eventual creation of a cooperative communist society. So this is the political program. Whenever someone a communist, for example, if I claim I am a communist, so I will do one thing. I will raise consciousness in the working class people, in the labor class, about what? To overthrow the powerful authority of a state, the capitalist. Another example, if you are a Nazi, however, you think it important for the superior white race to isolate, separate, subordinate, and perhaps exterminate Jews, blacks, and other inferior peoples. So, inferior peoples, in this sense, the Nazis, the people, the follower of a Nazism, so they will try to subordinate themselves, superior themselves, or the all other races. There is also another example. If you are a libertarian, your political program will include proposals for reducing or eliminating government interference in people's lives and liberties. But if you are a traditional conservative, you may want the state or government to intervene in order to promote morality or traditional values. Different ideologies recommend very different programs of action, as these examples demonstrate, but all recommend a program of some sort. In a conclusion, so political ideology performs these four functions because they are trying to link thought, ideas, and belief to action. Every ideology provides a vision of the social and political world, not only as it is, but as it should be, in hopes of inspiring people to act either to change or to preserve their way of life. If it does not do this, if it does not perform all the four functions, it is not a political ideology. In this way, our functional definition helps to sharpen our picture of what an ideology is by showing us what it is and is not. So, this is in the last, the ideology will perform this for function. If any ideology doesn't perform any one function, if any ideology miss even a single function, that it will become no longer an ideology. So this all about the working definition and four major function of an ideology. Thank you very much.